Welcome to Alabama Manufacturing Now, hosted by Alabama Technology Network, a podcast where we cover a wide array of challenges, solutions, and innovations for manufacturers. We're your host, Whitney Barlow, Supplier Development Manager. And I'm Paige Caulfield, Marketing and PR Manager.
Welcome back to Alabama Manufacturing Now. I am Whitney Barlow, and this is Paige Caulfield. And today we have Mike Orta, who is the maintenance manager at Polaris, and Nathan Bergquist, who is a project engineer for our industrial maintenance and EH&S, which is Environmental Health and Safety at ATN. Welcome, gentlemen. How are y'all today?
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having us. I appreciate this.
We are so excited. I am personally very excited because, well, actually, you probably are too, Paige,
Yes.
because we are both big outdoor enthusiasts. And so I spend a lot of time on a Polaris for a long time. I didn't call them UTVs. It was like, you know how you called every tractor a John Deere when you were a kid because that is what you thought they all were. Everything. Y'all did a very good job because everything was a Polaris.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
We rode in the Polaris.
Yes.
Our marketing department will be happy to hear that too.
Yes, they didn't. Up to this day, when the one goes by, they'll go, "What? There goes the UTV," and I'm like, "You mean the Polaris?" They're like, "There are other." I'm like, "No, there's not. It's just a Polaris." And speaking of Polaris, tell us a little bit about Polaris and your role there.
Okay. I work at the Huntsville Polaris manufacturing facility. At that location, we manufacture the three-wheeled slingshot, which is like a three-wheeled motorcycle. Looks almost. I compare it to like an X-wing when I see them on the road. You know, that might be kind of a throwback reference, but they're a lot of fun. And then we also make all the different versions of side-by-side Ranger. So
Okay.
we don't do the rock crawlers, the razors, but we do the utility vehicles, the Rangers, and we even have the electric version, the kinetic Ranger, yeah, which is really cool. It's
Yes.
very quiet and it's got a ridiculous amount of torque. It's a lot of fun to ride.
Oh, quiet is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the deer don't hear you. It's on the
You deer hunters out there that like to park a mile away from your stand.
Race or one in a golf cart with mud tires that you can drive up because it's now you have a solution.
That's right. We've got the electric solution for off-road vehicles. My role there, I'm the what's called the facilities maintenance manager. I'm responsible for taking care of the building and grounds, all of the supporting equipment, you know, HVAC, plumbing, electrical heating, as well as the process machinery. So we have 6 departments: tube fabrication, welding, metal paint, liquid paint, assembly, and injection mold. And so all the machines that are involved in the production process, those are mine to make sure they keep running.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
stuff.
it's a fun job. It's got its challenges. The way I've been there. December of 22 is when I started at Polaris. So I haven't been there for quite 2 years yet. I came to the team because a couple of my friends that I had worked with at previous companies had joined the Polaris team about 2 years before I did.
Okay.
And they were looking for a maintenance manager, and I had just finished up a role that I was doing for another company in the area, and I reached out to just say hi, see how they were doing, how their careers were going, and they say, "Hey man, if you're free, we need a maintenance manager."
We need you right.
So so I did. I went, interviewed, met the whole team. They came out with a very decent job offer, and I joined, and then I started looking at what I had gotten myself into. Uh,
So
Yeah.
you were drinking water out of a fire hose.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So what had the history there? Some of it is there had been so it was post COVID, right? And during when COVID hit in 19, the plant had only been open for about 2 years.
Okay.
And was manufacturing at a reduced rate. Well, when COVID hit, you know, obviously it shook everything up. We were deemed essential because we have government contracts for military grade ATVs and razors that they'll use overseas for various special operations. And in order to sustain that contract, obviously we had to be designated essential. So in the meantime, we were trying and this is all third party. I wasn't present for this, but during that challenging time of having to monitor everybody's temperature, making sure the 6-foot distance was there, controlling, having masks on and all that stuff. We lost a lot of employees. A lot of people went out for, to take advantage of the governmental help. And we got down to the point where we had very few people doing a whole lot of work. And with skilled trades, which is what I call my guys, the market became super, super hot. Skilled trades or journeymen, maintenance people have been declining in their population since, golly, mid 90s, if not before. And it's always been a concern. Every role I've had, it's been difficult to man up to the number of staff that you're allowed to have. Well, once everyone got laid off and was exposed to what's out there, what other companies in the area were looking for similar skill sets and what they're willing to pay, we lost half the maintenance team from what I've told her at that point in time. And even a big chunk of them went into business for themselves as a contract maintenance group.
Yeah.
And they're doing great. And it was something that unfortunately Polaris was slow to react to. So when I got in, there was a whole lot of dedicated technicians. We were at about 1/3 of our approved staffing.
Oh.
So they were doing the work of 3 guys per guy, just trying to keep the machines running. A lot of the discipline in doing preventive maintenance had kind of dropped by the side because it was all firefighting. You couldn't, it's a downward spiral. When you start having to battle breakdowns with too few people to maintain your preventive maintenance, then you get more breakdowns. And so then you pull more people to battle those breakdowns, and you're not doing more PMs, and then you get more breakdowns. So it was a very trying time. When I came in, there were about 5 guys that were about ready to walk out. In my first week that I was there, all 5 of them at different times came into my office and said, "Hey, look, I'm about ready to leave. Why should I stay?" And I was brand new.
You're like, I'm sorry, what? Well, I'm gonna need to stay.
Because I need you. That's why you should stay. Yeah, it doesn't have as much weight.
Friend. Remember, we're friends. I don't know you.
Right.
So we're in this together. We're back to High School Musical.
And they're like, "Yeah, oh, really? Where have you been?" Right.
Yes.
So I was able to kind of settle things down and talk them into giving me a chance. I let them know what I'm all about, how I run a maintenance department, what to expect from me, what I expected from them. I just kept the truth on the table. I mean, you got to be honest. You can't. One thing that I've learned, and I've been doing this a long time. I started in the trades in '88, and I became a leader around '96. Was my first real leadership opportunity in the skilled trades. It will come out, and you will lose trust, and you will decimate whatever esprit de corps you may have had.
All people running Tuesday need to listen to Mike Orta.
Yes, they're right.
Or running not Tuesday. I'm sorry, I'm my brain running in the election, any election. Next Tuesday, the following Tuesday, a Tuesday 6 months from now.
Don't lie. Tell us the truth.
It's our public service announcement today.
Right.
So you came in and you built trust.
Yes.
And you built a team.
Yes.
I feel like we've gained so many nuggets of that. Number one, preventative maintenance. That's a huge one. I feel like that everyone needs to take that and realize whether it's maintenance or just yourself and your family or your company, period. If you're not staying on top of things and helping educate and train people and staying in front.
Yeah.
And that is one thing I think across the board. If you have facilities, maintenance, etc., they think that's the first place that we can not take care of them. But that's like your body. If you're not keeping your body well oiled and making sure it. So how did you and ATN get connected?
So what's funny is I had known Perry before COVID when I was with another company in the area doing maintenance management there, and we had hooked up to. I wanted to do a troubleshooting class because at that facility that I was at, The guys were very good at doing preventive maintenance because it was a very good program, uh, but they weren't as good at being able to go in and find problems, right? Why did this break down? What do we need to do better? So I had hooked up with Perry then, and got to know ATN and what all the services and benefits that were associated with that. And then when I got to Polaris, realizing that one of the first things I had to do was get a pipeline of people in, and that we didn't have a wage scale that was going to be competitive to pull folks from other locations. I knew I had to start something locally, right, in the plant. And so I got with Perry and talked about, what an apprenticeship curriculum might look like. And we kind of built a rough draft of, what I want to see in a training plan and the kind of timeline that would take, and of course the cost. And then he went back to handle a whole bunch of stuff with AIDT, with Alabama Works, with getting everything organized so that he could present it to me and say, okay, here's what you got to do. Bam, bam, bam. So that's, I'd known Perry for about 3 years, I guess, by the time I got to Polaris. I don't know if ATN had a relationship with Polaris before that. There may have been.
We didn't. No.
Okay.
So y'all built a training team. Shout out to Perry.
Perry
Way to go, Perry.
Center Director in Coleman.
Where Nathan's house. But one more thing. So the apprenticeship program. I'm gonna pause. Nick, can y'all please turn the air on? It's hot in here again.
I thought that was just me being nervous.
Oh, okay. Never mind. So we're just gonna have to. Yes. Are you good?
Huh?
Do you want some water?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right.
Water will just make me sweat more.
Oh. Okay.
Gotcha. Well, thank you anyway. Appreciate it. That's okay.
Prostitute in church.
Dear Lord.
All right, back to what we're doing. Okay. Shit. Okay, so Mike, we're talking about how fantastic the training program was that Perry brought to you. So that developed out into what y'all turned into a training program or apprenticeship type program with Polaris. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So like I said, the idea was that we needed to find people that were willing to work on our maintenance team for what we had to offer, right, for our compensation package. And the best place to look, let me back up about 10 years. When I was working for another company, we were experiencing a similar issue trying to get multi-craft technicians.
Okay.
Someone that can do electrician work, someone that can do mechanical work, someone that can do work on fluid power systems, hydraulics, water
So a
systems.
unicorn. You were
Yes.
looking for
Yes, that's exactly it.
right?
And
Okay.
surprise, we didn't find a lot of them out there.
Amazing.
So we actually partnered with a local electrical union, the IBEW, where I was,
Uh-huh.
and started generating a multi-craft apprenticeship program. So I was I was at least familiar with what it took to get going. And so when I brought that to Perry, of course, what I needed from him was the curriculum, because I've never done anything like that.
Mhm.
Then I went back to my HR department once I had the package from Perry, and I said, hey, we have, I think at the time it was 20 maintenance openings on a 60-person staff, right? So like I said, we were struggling. And I said, look, we haven't been able to attract anyone over here from any other company. So here's my proposal. And I laid out my apprenticeship program for my HR department. And of course, the immediate answer was, no, it's going to cost too much. We're going to have liability. There's going to be, people,
Thanks.
people not wondering why they didn't get selected and other people did, all that stuff. So that's when I started building the program itself. So there's several aspects to it. One is a selection test, a aptitude test, which Nathan was instrumental in helping construct.
Oh, wow.
And
Look at you.
we put together how we would post for the job, what the pay scale would be for that level, for that apprentice. And sidebar, it ended up, I basically restructured the entire pay scale for the maintenance team. And we were able to get a raise for the whole group out of being able to present this apprenticeship program as the way that folks can advance in maintenance. It was very clearly defined.
This is such an amazing story. I am like intrigued. Okay, continue on.
So back to HR, we went back and forth on what the program would look like. I got everything written down into a written program format. And essentially what it is we post a job. for maintenance apprentice. It's a 2-year program, and we put that out up front to any of the applicants. Hey, this is going to take you 2 years to get from where you're at now to where we're telling you you're going to be. But at the end of that travel, you've got all this available to you, right? And during that 2 years, the first 6 months, they spend 1 week a month in training through the ATN curriculum. While they're doing that, when they're not in training, they're back on the floor with my team. They're assigned to what we call a master technician, who's a top pay grade tech, and they shadow them. And they could be going to get wrenches, they could be changing out filters, they could be helping lift something, but the whole time they're learning on the job. This is what maintenance is like, and that was important to me, not just having the knowledge to be a maintenance person, but knowing what the business of maintenance consists of. And then after that first year, that's when they get assigned to rotating shifts. So, and it's not as bad as it sounds. We've got 3 shifts, first, second, and third. And each shift is a very different animal when it comes to maintenance. Like, first shift is heavy technical. A lot of the improvement and planning work goes on first, in addition to trouble calls and stuff. Second shift is more of a split between those same trouble calls and troubleshooting and repairs and some planned work, because we don't run all the lines on second shift. And then third shift is almost 100% preventive maintenance. So they work right out of our preventive maintenance plan. And I wanted the apprentices to be aware of that, because that could have a bearing when we go to ask them, hey, what's your shift preference?
Right.
They might have something that they like to do better. If they like PMs better, they might want to be on night shift. So we put that into the program where they would get to rotate on their second year. And while they're rotating, they have 2 qualifications to complete in that time in order to graduate, per se. So they go through the curriculum, and the first year pretty much is all it's all learning, right? How much can you absorb? The second year is rotating through to understand the business and applying what they've learned by completing the qualification cards. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned earlier there were 6 departments in Polaris. So each department has a set of qualification criteria for a maintenance person. And this is something that we put together 2 summers ago. So what they have to do is on each qualification card, there's what we call a checkout. It's a 1-line question. For example, explain to me how the metal paint oven startup sequence goes, right? And so when they learn that particular question, they'll go to what we call a qualified card signer, one of our master technicians that is an expert in one or more of those areas that we've designated to say, okay, if a candidate or somebody that's trying to advance comes to you, you're allowed to sign this off, but they have to demonstrate to you that they know it. And this was a huge deal for the card signers as well, because they were very nervous. They didn't want to say, if they come back and they don't know anything, am I going to be blamed? Am I going to be in trouble? It's like, no, guys, this is how this is supposed to work. So the idea is, if I'm an apprentice or if I'm a candidate, I come to my master tech and I say, hey, I'm ready to explain to you how the metal paint startup sequence works. And he says, okay, go ahead. And then I'll run through my spiel. And that's to generate a more in-depth conversation. So, when you get to then the flame rod kicks in to detect the flame and send that signal back to the controller. How does it do that? What is that type of device called? How does temperature impact that signal going to the controller? What's the minimum voltage we're looking for in order for us to say, yes, for sure we have flame? So why is it necessary to have flame in order for the oven to light up? I mean, it could stretch into a whole hour worth of conversation around one question, one checkout. And that's the idea, is to get the master techs pulling the information out of the apprentices in order to make sure that they have a well-rounded knowledge. Because my spiel to the master techs is, if you sign this, you're saying that you would be willing to follow this person on shift, or have them follow you and trust that they're going to do the work that you would do. That's kind of like the guidelines I gave. So make sure they know what you know, is essentially what I was trying to tell. And that once we got that all worked out in place, we had to submit that through HR, of course, and they approved the what we call the qualification advancement program. And now we've got that as part of the apprenticeship program. So we'll issue the apprentices 2 qualification cards at the beginning of their second year, and they've got that full year to complete that qualification card. Each card ends with, once they get all the signatures filled in, they would then go to their supervisor and say, hey, I'm ready for my final qualification review. And then they would sit down with me, their supervisor, their master tech, and maybe one other tech or an engineer from the floor, and we'll give them like a round robin interview. And the questions may not be on their qualification card, but they're things that we would still expect them to have picked up along the way. So, pardon me. Once that's completed, then they've got their card done. Now, the way that it's set up as the advancement program is every 2 cards you complete, you go up 1 pay grade. So when the apprentices are done, they're no longer what we would call a grade 3. They would be a grade 2. And so they'd get a raise.
Incentive there.
Yes.
So learn and see your work. That is very interesting.
And it is really cool how you have where you're given your master techs, because one of the things that we all talk about is the amount of knowledge that's leaving these plants with the being retiring, and what a brilliant way to get that knowledge conveyed to younger people. I love that. That is like, I was like, this is it. You're gonna need 2 hours with Mike.
I would love to take credit for that. Believe it or not, that's a military model. I learned that when I was in the Navy. That's how we qualified.
Well, you know what? That is amazing. That's great. That's right. Mike went to the Navy and he was University of Michigan grad. So.
Yes, ma'am. Go blue.
That's right. That's right.
National champs. So not even a hope this year, but last year.
Well, hey, look, we'll take it, we'll take it where we can. If we live in the state where the struggle's realish. Yeah, the struggle's real. And I'm an Auburn fan, so I had to really what does Auburn. Anyway, I have digressed. Excuse me, Paige.
So good.
The illustrious Nathan.
Yes, we don't want to leave you out, Nathan, because you are definitely part of this conversation. For those that didn't remember from the earlier conversation, Nathan is a project engineer with ATN. Nathan, tell us a little bit about your job and how long you've been with ATN.
I've been with ATN about 12 years now. Most of my work actually works with industrial maintenance, of course. I do hydraulics, pneumatics. Most of my work is also electrical, like motor controls, PLC training.
Okay.
I also have built like the assessments, which was a custom build for Polaris.
Okay. Now the training that you have provided or ATN has provided Polaris, what all has that included? What have we done for them?
Well, to start off, we did the assessments,
Okay.
which was actually kind of shocking because it was people off of the production line. I was amazed actually how well most people did. Even if they weren't the high scorer, how many questions they actually got right and how that moved forward. From there, as he was talking about them having knowledge of equipment, we see this as knowledge to actually carry out troubleshooting. Because when they're coming up next to it, it's broken. They now have to back up and figure out where is it broken, why is it broken, what are the indications. And most of our training is headed in that direction. That's what we try to push. We start off with in this case, Polaris, we start off with a whole lot of basic electrical class. We did a belt and chain drives, how that's all supposed to go together with gearing, chains, tensioning. We did alignment, which used to be quite difficult because you actually had to sit down and do math. Nowadays, you set up in a laser alignment and hit the button and it says, move this up.
That would be
That hydraulic unit, you guys brought out that test panel. That was awesome. I thought that was very cool.
I'm getting there. That's one of my pilots.
I get excited about that.
The first ones are actually kind of just basic knowledge, and it helps them out when they're working, doing like alignment, etc. If you wanted to, we could still do the old mathematical way of doing it. But most students just they look at you like, we're putting in a shim here, we're doing some math, we put in a shim there. Nowadays, you have an electrical way of doing it. You put on 2 devices, hit the button for the most part. Actually, you turn the shafts, hit the button, and it says, do this, and you do this, and then it says you're aligned. And you're done.
I might do that.
Which makes it a whole lot easier on maintenance because they don't have to sit down with graph paper and see how bad our math skills actually had deteriorated.
Yes.
Then we move into some of our more, and I call these, because we're pushing troubleshooting as part of these classes. And that's one of the biggest things is, in one class we actually have, there is part of the course is troubleshooting. And that's actually hydraulics, which The trainers are really fun and great. They're probably my favorite training for teaching troubleshooting because we actually build the circuits.
Okay.
We start off learning all the equipment that we have on the board. If Polaris had something special they had, we would actually try and incorporate that. If we didn't have the device, we would actually bring up a picture and walk through it. We didn't do this for Polaris, but sometimes they will give us schematics, companies will, their schematics, and we will sit down and try and walk the students through their schematics on how this device works.
Oh, that's so interesting.
But then we get into just getting in hydraulics. They've built circuits with it. They've seen how the components work. We then have a section, this is the last 2 days of a 5-day class, and we have them build the circuit. It works, and we hit a button and it breaks. It literally
Oh.
will have a fault, and this fault is seeable. Then we tell them, what do you change out to fix it? And this is where we get into the fun part of how much do they actually get out of the class? Because this is where they're going back and like, what do we look at? And you start seeing them, or you hope they're developing troubleshooting skills, or at least showing them. For the example, if they have a problem and we can tell you based on the symptoms, remember they're seeing the symptoms because we actually have, this is a physical device that we've fooled into breaking. We actually have flow paths that make it, quote, break.
So this isn't just some hypothetical.
No, it's not hypothetical. It's not on a monitor. They can actually see it. We actually have a scenario with it. We have if they wanted it, we can show it up on a monitor, an actual screen with the symptoms, what the operator is telling them. And one of the first things when we get into it is what could cause this problem. And this is starting to look at, because we want them to push the idea of what can cause this problem. One problem we've had with maintenance, and I assume you've seen this problem as well, they have a tendency to be part swappers.
Oh.
They show up at a machine
Just
and they
kinda
start
guessing.
change that, change
Load
that,
up the
change
parts,
that.
and fire. Yep. That's the last thing you want. That's really expensive.
Yeah.
And you don't know if you fixed the problem or if you simply did something that the problem could go away for a little bit. So we call this, and this is actually a class we taught in this, is root cause analysis for maintenance. Really long word. Is actually problem solving 101. We're actually trying to sit them down and have them think out, why does this machine do this? And how do we fix it? Because we want them also, if they go back to what we call the root cause, they're coming back to the way you correct the problem and probably correct it the best way.
Right.
One example of that would be, I don't know how many miles of conveyor systems y'all have at Polaris, but let's say it's very common to have 20 miles of conveyors in some plants.
Yeah.
One place, they kept having problems with a simple shaft on the conveyor, the coupling break. Their answer to this was, instead of replace all the couplings, they actually found a coupling that when it breaks, it still works and starts making a noise. So you can know which coupling to go replace, and there is a problem here. And your line workers can say, hey, we can tell you this is what's wrong.
Oh, see?
But you run into this idea of they have to know the machine.
Yeah.
You can think about this as being a competent or qualified person. They know how the machine works. They know how to work on it safely. Then the hard part is going back and seeing, how do we get back to a root cause? Because most problems you can solve anywhere along the line. But the cheapest and the way that solves it permanently is actually what we call a root cause. We do this in hydraulics, which is the most common, and that's easy because we have a section on it. On 2 other classes, pneumatics and motor controls. Pneumatics is stuff that moves with air. You build circuits. There's not per se a troubleshooting segment, but there is the troubleshooting of when somebody rigs it up wrong. We're there to, what's happening? What's going wrong? What part could it be? The same is true in motor controls. This is electrical. They're building a circuit. Then they're sitting down and we're using a meter, multimeter, voltmeter, etc., to actually try them troubleshoot the circuit. And usually, again, not planned troubleshooting. This is when somebody rigs something up wrong and they can't figure it out directly, and we start trying to walk them through the process. What would cause this?
Right.
And it's the thought process, and that's probably one of the really, I wouldn't say fun, but it's a highlight of my day when I'm working with these people, to see them actually start making the connections with, this problem can only be caused by this certain number of things, and this is where we need to start concentrating on.
I love that class. I love that aspect of the class, is the troubleshooting, because you give them a methodology. What I see a lot in maintenance is that there's no technicians that consider themselves troubleshooters are good at guessing. in most cases. But when they've got the training in troubleshooting, then they've got a method that they go by that splits the system into smaller and smaller parts based on the readings and other indicators that they get, and lets them narrow the problem down without just going back in the memory banks and saying, well, last time it was this issue. I love that you guys have that methodological approach to troubleshooting that you teach the kids. That's great.
I feel like this might be the most philosophical ATM manufacturing now we've ever done, because you can take what y'all are saying, and I'm just sitting here thinking, the rest of the world should apply this to real life. Root cause analysis, how to figure out things that break, preventative maintenance. Did you not know that y'all were here? Did y'all know maintenance was psychology? Did you know that was what you're?
Funny enough, yes. We run into the problem that he was talking about losing maintenance people. Part of the big challenge with losing those people is they have what we call tribal knowledge. They've worked on this machinery. They know how it works. They know what has happened before. Um, and you have some idea how to fix it. And in some cases, they could fix it better. This is not at Polaris, but another plant, they were cutting. You would think of it as, the tubing material, it's cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
They were cut it on a bandsaw.
No.
And because they were cutting it to lengths, this is how they cut those tubes. And every about once a month, they would go in and have to replace a switch inside the bandsaw, because it would get the switch was open and would allow the cardboard shavings to get in and cram it up. So the question there, and this is one of my first questions, why are you doing this? Replace the switch with a sealed switch or something that you don't have to come back and replace. And this is going back to, what's the root cause? It's, can you stop this root cause? I can even slow it by just take some electrical tape and start wrapping the plug so that it's less likely for shavings to get in. So I can temporarily, instead they're simply, hey, they break it. We show up with another switch, replace the switch. In the same amount of time, though, you could do it once and not have to worry about it maybe in 2 years.
Yeah, so the impacts of being able to figure out the root cause and fixing the problem, whatever it might be, I can only imagine the financial impact is huge.
It's phenomenal.
Of that.
Yes.
So,
Just a quick example. Starting this year, we had so we have ovens that we bake our painted parts in. Right, it dries them out and then hardens everything up to the right, finish, surface hardness, all that stuff. When an oven drops out, the flame goes out. It usually takes between, depending on how long it's been down, half an hour to 2 hours to come back up, and that is right around 75 vehicles worth of time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Wasn't expecting that number.
So we started a focused campaign on figuring out why, because we never knew why they would go out. It was just the flame would go out, we'd go back, there would be no fault, we'd reset it, and it would fire back up again. But if we didn't catch it right away, then it would take the fastest we could get it back was a half an hour back up to temperature, and it could take up to 2 hours. So we started digging into what is in this circuit that would possibly cause the gas to shut off, because that's what we were coming up on. And we spent a lot of time to figure out where the system was falling short of design parameters, and then we were able to bring in an expert and say, okay, look, this is what we've found with the system. What can we do to fix this? And turns out the detector for the flame was not as robust as we would want. If the flame would flicker, then it would go, if it would go too far away from the flame rod would sense a loss of flame. And it's required to shut the gas off, because if you got gas going into a container that doesn't have a flame in it, you're just building up gas, you're making a bomb, right? So part of the safety circuitry is to cut the gas off. Now they recommended a ultraviolet flame detector that is more like a camera that's just looking at where the flame comes out of. We put that on as a trial on 2 of the ovens. We have not lost flame on either of those since.
So it was the root cause and learn it. See, that's pretty cool. 75. Wow, that's a lot.
Well, keep in mind that it's all the way down the line as well. If I stop paint, that's the people doing assembly don't have parts, so they're sitting down twiddling their thumbs. The people who I have to get parts out to get more parts in, so that's a shipping concern. I might have be able to pull parts from the trucks that are sitting out there to get new parts in. And there are trucks lined up to take the parts or the complete vehicles somewhere else. All of this starts getting delayed, and it's kind of a pile up. And I have no idea what the dollar amount is for that for Polaris, but trust me, they have a number about downtime costs them this much as a dollar amount.
Yeah,
So we're-
$10,000 a minute.
Oh, that's a lot. And so,
So you can do
very important.
you can also do a lot of troubleshooting for that dollar amount.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
So even though it took you a while and an expert to figure out the UV, the camera, it was well worth it.
Yes.
2 hours at 10,000 a minute. No, I'm not someone with arrow, but that is a lot.
It's even that stupid little switch in a bandsaw.
Yeah.
Yes.
The idea of you're having to come here once every 2 months or less and change out that switch.
Mhm.
That's,
It doesn't sound like a lot of time, 5 to 10, 15 minutes, but it adds up quite quickly. And there is a cost, and it's well worth getting a switch that's sealed.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. You just would never thought about it like this until y'all really sat here. I am quite intrigued. And then I keep thinking, I'm taking all these methods and applying them to my life now.
Well, you try, and it's a question of why and kind of off topic. But I sometimes bring this up in classes. Some people find this really stupid. If you have children, remember child's books.
Yes.
A lot of times we're
Yeah.
going cause to effect, right? We start off with something happening, and it causes something worse. It
Yeah.
causes something worse and causes something worse. As maintenance, we start at the back of the book and start flipping forward. We have chaos in the back of the book,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And we're trying to find what actually started this entire process.
So like Three Little Pigs, you're trying to figure out why the straw house is blown down.
There you
Right.
go.
Actually, I have a child's book I carry. It's in one of my boxes. It's actually a little bug wanna chew,
Oh,
because a little bug wanna chew. In this case, let's see, a seed fell, seed hit a worm kicked a tree, coconut fell out of the tree, and it goes on and on until you have a nightmare at the end of the book. And this is where maintenance is taking over. We have a nightmare or a problem, and we can't look back just immediately and say a little bug sneezed. We have to go through the entire process of how do we get back? And the idea of the thought process of going back is also something that most people are not familiar with. We're used to, hey, show up and do this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
remove the seed, figure out the coconut. We'll just start fixing all of that. And eventually we get back to the bug about, I don't know, $500,000 up in it.
Funny enough, when we work with a lot of these companies, we find out they're working on as part of the system that has nothing to do with their problem, because their problem is entirely another part of the machine.
That's interesting.
Um,
Real life relatable.
And it's actually one of the challenges. We've been in another plant before. We were doing hydraulics, and they said, we had all these problems, and we're like, show us the schematic. And we were like, you realize, Joe, we're working on these parts that had nothing to do with what you were saying was the problem. Same pump, same system,
Yikes.
but they're they're literally separate lines or separate categories, totally separate. They're working on replacing parts here, and then all of a sudden it fixes it. And we're saying, well, it's not really fixing it. What's happening is the machine is now cooling down. The oil is cooling down. It's getting more viscous, and it doesn't cause its problem that you're seeing.
As it gets more
So
and it's
sometimes you run into this where you're solving the problem, but you're not really solving it. You've just waited long enough that the problem has gone away until it comes back.
Since we're talking about how it relates to real life problems and how we can relate to people, how does recruiting, because you're in the Huntsville area,
Mhm.
and so competitiveness and culture of the company and those kind of things, how have you seen that impact, especially in your area, maintenance?
Wow. Okay. So it's a huge impact. If I could, if I would make any recommendation to any maintenance manager out there, it is set your culture and maintain your culture, because that is what's going to keep your folks if you're able to get them in the door. It is
Wow.
yes. Don't lie. Yes, exactly, exactly. That's all, guys. Part of our job is keep the truth on the table, because the Huntsville area is growing so fast in industry. And there, like I mentioned before, there has been a steadily declining population of skilled tradespeople since the mid to late 90s, and it's only gotten worse. I will go out and talk to schools as often as I can get into them, just to try and get kids interested in maintenance and the skilled trades careers as an option instead of necessarily college or beauty school or whatever. Um, it's a high paying job and it's a high demand, and that's why it's a high paying job. What I try to do for culture, and it all depends on what it's like when you walk into the plant, right? When you first get your team, you have to make an assessment of where are these folks at as an organization in their maturity, right? How do they look at preventive and predictive maintenance? Are they chores or are they tools, right? Where's their head at around the importance of documentation and communication? Is it just something extra or is it something that's necessary, right? And once you make that evaluation, that gives you an idea of what you have to do with culture. Coming into this organization, because there had been such a mass exodus of their senior folks right around COVID, it was all practically all new technicians to the role. So it was, in my mind, there was a need to generate some level of esprit de corps, right? Some level of team spirit, some level of this is a group that I can belong to. And now this is so this is where I nerd out a little bit. One of my first shift supervisor when I got there was giving me the tour and introduced the idea that he refers to the team as Dragon Slayers. And I said, really? I said, what is that all about? And he tells me, well, the way I tell him, this is like our village of people that we take care of. All the people on the lines are, if you were looking at a movie like Lord of the Rings or something, they'd be the tinkerers or the cobblers or the armor makers, trying to keep the village going, right? But when a dragon comes, they don't know what to do. And that's when they call the Dragon Slayer. And the dragon is downtime. Anytime a machine breaks down, that's the dragon awakes and the villager can't do anything, so they have to get a hold of the Dragon Slayer to come in and slay that dragon. And we put them down, and then we restore peace, and then they can continue on their manufacturing journey, right? And we took it a little bit further. I said, man, I love that. I'll admit I'm a huge nerd. When I was growing up in the 80s, I played D&D, I read Lord of the Rings, I did all the huge Star Wars fan, comic books out the yin yang. Very much love.
Like you are speaking my language.
Yes. I could
Call
really.
me Mike Orta the Dragon. Right. I'm going Game of Thrones, but I'm getting it.
Yes, I love Game of Thrones. So I took that and we ran with it. I said, all right, Jay, we're gonna crank this up a notch. It's not just gonna be because we had it. Matter of fact, I've got it. Here's our Dragon Slayer symbol right there on our swag. So we put this. So as soon as I learned about this, I started going over it with the teams. I make every shift turnover a priority for me to be at. So when first and third turnover, when first and second turnover, I'm there so that I can speak to all my techs in a day. And I started emphasizing this. And we got T-shirts made with the Dragon Slayer logos and all this stuff. We got backpacks. We got the hats. We got boggins.
Yes.
And we handed them out, and we just kind of pushed the whole idea of this is what we do, this is why we do it, this is what we're like, this is our group. And so our team name is the Dragon Slayers. We got a
That's really cool.
teams page and everything. And it didn't take like it did with me, with everybody, because not everybody has that kind of interest, but it has.
Who doesn't like Game of Thrones?
So you're the father of dragons.
Oh, you are.
It's awesome. I had not thought of it like that. I'm going to now.
Right, guys. He's coming back. Then that's Mark. Did he get you a dragon slayer?
No, not yet. I haven't actually seen Nathan since we put all this into play.
I expect to see it in.
So there will be some swag for you, Nathan, but when you come back.
I'll have to look forward to it.
Well, Nathan, one last question. We tend to refer to our partners, our clients, as partners. Speak about y'all's relationship and how well you work together and just about customer satisfaction.
I would say one of the biggest things is I think Michael knows if he needs us, give us a call.
100%.
I don't think we've done it for you, but I've had companies call me up and say, we desperately needed an FPA 70E that's electrical safety, and we need it in the next 2 weeks. And it's like, okay, let's write a contract. As soon as you sign the contract, I'll pretty much be there. If they wanted to incorporate anything or even put, we have a schedule, but we have been able to be very flexible with the schedule as things come up, especially in maintenance, because if you had a major part breakdown, you might have what we call an all hands on deck. That means, we might want to put this training off for 2 or 3 days or a week if possible. Well, we get everybody on deck to take care of this problem right now. Because remember, this is big dragon, this is big money. So I'd say flexibility, working with them, and truthfully, I feel like this is going to be kind of trite, but the fact I actually love it when I have my students and the trainees actually making a connection, because I feel like I'm influencing Polaris as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm actually having people develop the skill set that can keep Polaris or another company running.
Nathan's team is great at taking feedback as well. Like when he was first developing the aptitude test, he sent it to me. I went through it. I took it, myself to just to test it out, and I sent him back some feedback. And he's like, "Okay, we can change this and this." And that was 2 or 3 iterations, I think, and when we finally settled on the final one. Curriculum has been the same way. We'll go back and forth with, can we put this class before this class? Because I'd really like them to learn this theory before they go into this application. And it's they're very, very flexible with what we need.
Open communication, it sounds like.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So, especially when they're willing to work with us. We run into some, sometimes it's just HR. They're usually less fun to work with. I hate to say this. 'Cause
Sorry, are you HR?
we love you, HR, but they don't actually know what goes on with all this, what classes you want. I also enjoy it when we have people show up like for the training, because that actually tells me, like, even if Mike showed up, just because it tells the students this is important.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we run into a problem of this is required versus this is important. And the acceptance of that and the recognition that this is getting them a skill set. We also have it during class, since they're working in different, I'm going to call it pods, you call them different lines, where they start talking about, hey, we have one of these in this section.
Yeah.
And they start describing what problems they've had, like injection molding is common to have more hydraulics than anything else. They start talking about what problems they've had there, and the other students know that they're going to be there sooner or later. So it starts making it, I'm going to call it, more real for them.
Yeah.
Versus just being a class where they have to sit there and they're expected to complete the class.
Yes, and then just check a box. I love it. I love that we've got real life, all the way Game of Thrones. We have checked, and I'm expecting to see you in a Dragon Slayer. I'm trying to figure.
Let's see.
I guess HR would be like the people in the castle. They're really a bit.
Yeah. Well, in the ivory tower. Yeah.
A lot of times, and they work for it too, but most of the time they don't understand the potential complexities.
Yes.
They're asked to get a class. The class may not have what their maintenance is actually looking for. We've run into this problem before as well. And we've had to sit down. This was not with Polaris, but they've had to show up and say, we want this, this, and this instead of what you already have in class. And we've either had to restructure the class or custom build them a class.
Yeah, well, I've learned so much in just a short time about how, maintenance is instrumental in making the manufacturing facility work. But just talking and hearing from y'all, I've definitely got to come to a class or a series of classes and learn some stuff.
It'll be great.
You need me on boards, not on anything real all the time.
All right.
But
Show up for hydraulics. I will wear
Hydraulics is fun.
Hydraulics is fun.
Love hydraulics.
Just don't wear anything that can't get oil stain.
Oh,
So we warn the students.
black, so
Yeah, either dark clothes. Normally it's blue jeans and dark clothes. As we warn people, don't wear white. If you do, it won't be white at the end of it. All hydraulics leak. That's a problem.
all hydraulic leaks. Well, thank y'all so much.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us today. Mike, if there is anybody out there that wants to get in touch with Polaris, what's the best way for them to do that?
Especially if it's maintenance related, just get a hold of me directly. My email address is mike.orta, ORTA, @polaris.com.
Awesome. And Nathan, if somebody wants to talk to you about some IMT training, how do they get in touch with you?
They can try. My email address is Bergquist at ATN.org, but they can have a devil of a time spelling it, is what most people do.
You can also find Nathan.
So I recommend going to the website. Again, most people don't get my last name correct. I recommend the website.
Go on the website. It has his email and phone number up there if you want to get in touch with Nathan. Again, we appreciate you both coming to be with us today and spending time with us and having this wonderful conversation that we learned so much.
Also, if they go to the website, they also have a list of what I would call our standard classes.
That's right.
Keep in mind, we do customize them as necessary for clients,
Yes.
which is one of the big, I would say, one of the perks.
Yeah.
Because we've actually bought components, especially even for hydraulics, just to show certain things that a company wanted to show.
That's right. I didn't think about that. That's a good
That's a
point.
great point.
Well, thank you so much. And Mike, go slay some dragons.
Will D, ma'am. Thank you all. I appreciate you.
We'll see you next time. Thanks.